Hello my friends and welcome back. Wednesday my dudes, hump day, the spine of the week has been broken. Much like the front line in the south, because in the second half of this video we're gonna watch an overview of the Ukrainian counteroffensive in the Zaporizhia Oblast, and oh boy, it's something to wait for. But before that, the Russian economy. But even before that, I will give you a story of a Ukrainian soldier and a dog. Medics found a note in the bag of a fallen soldier. It wasn't addressed to his family, but to his dog. For several months, military drones circling above the front line had captured glimpses of incredible friendship amid the ruins. Frame after frame showed the soldier sharing his meager rations and warmth with a stray dog who refused to leave his side. Look at that. This was the foxhole of the Ukrainian soldier, this was the stray dog. They found each other, and this is how they were seen for a long time. And unfortunately, the soldier got killed. When a massive attack finally took the soldier's life, medics found him exactly where the drone had last recorded him. Inside his jacket was a handwritten note, not to his parents, but a request for help for his friend. It read, "We've been fighting together for 2 years. If I'm gone, please leave my jacket in my dugout. Winter is coming soon, and he'll come there to keep warm. P.S. If you manage to catch him, he likes it when you scratch him behind his ears." That is sweet, and that is sad. The soldier we know passed away in battle, but we don't know if that happened to the dog also. I personally hope the dog is alive and will be saved from the front lines. But now, my friends, Russian economy. Let's see how bad Russia is really doing, and it's, it's pretty bad. We all know that there are two Trojan horses in European Union. That is Hungary and Slovakia. These two countries right here who are very much, not the country but the leaders, the prime ministers of both countries are very much pro-Kremlin. Hungary still wants to buy Russian oil, but now Ukraine has totally banned it or cut it off. Poland, of course not. Romania, of course not. The last of it was going through Croatia. But now Croatia also suspended all of the Russian oil transfers through its country, so Hungary just physically is unable to buy Russian oil, although Viktor Orban would like to do so. Now is their time to transition away, and like the European Union, transitioning away from Russian oil is like getting rid of an addiction. It's quite painful for the economy for the time being, but later everybody will be thankful for you. So Hungary now, later than everybody else, is forced to transition away from Russian oil and gas. Russia is starting to drown in oil. The capacity of oil storage facilities in Russia is approaching exhaustion as oil companies face increasing difficulties in selling to India. The inability to store oil will lead to oil companies being forced to reduce production by about 300,000 barrels per day by March to April. Due to difficulties in selling oil, Russian companies have already reduced production by 100,000 barrels per day in December. Thing is, Russian country oil storage facilities are full because they are not able to find a buyer enough for the oil. They produce it more than they can sell off. The ships, the seaborne oil, they're full also. They're just adrift on the world's oceans. Nobody's buying because there's so much oil, and due to sanctions, not very many buyers. India and China were the largest, but India just cut their purchases of Russian oil by 30%. And they're also seized 3 Shadow Fleet tankers. So what's up with that? It might be connected to Indian and European Union trade agreement. Might be connected to Trump's pressure towards India. We don't know. All we know is that it's really painful for Russia. And the thing is, Russia is forced to cut production of oil. It's not just a simple statement. This is really dangerous for their oil infrastructure. Check this out. Results of decreasing production. Reducing oil production, especially if it leads to a shutdown or significant reduction in flow, causes several technical and operational issues for oil pipes, including increased corrosion, wax buildup, and potential blockage. Pipelines are designed for constant, high-pressure flow, so a reduction requires careful maintenance to prevent them from becoming unusable. Also, Russian oil reserves are full, so they have to reduce production, meaning the pipelines they don't maintain them or take care of them as they should, there's gonna be massive issues for the Russian oil pipelines. Infrastructure of transporting oil through pipelines in Russia, it's really, really bad. You cannot just stop production and then restart it. You gotta rebuild majority of the pipelines. It's very dangerous situation for Russia if they don't find a buyer really fast. Here is a little illustration for you of the Soviet mentality. And why Soviet? Well, because Russia as a country adapted or took over or never got rid of that mentality actually. In the 1920s, Soviet Union, planners decided Moscow needed more nails. So they ordered factories to produce tons of nails, literally. Clever factory managers made huge, heavy nails to hit their weight targets with minimal effort. When planners got on and switched to counting nails by quantity, the factories cranked out thousands of tiny, useless pins. So this illustrates perfectly how things are still run in Russia, especially in the Ministry of Defense. If they want something, it's a political order, we need more of that, we need more of drones. They will force all of the money, all of the personnel and expertise towards making drones. And nobody's making tanks or choppers or Kalashnikovs anymore. Just an illustration here. They always have this pipe tunnel vision. We have one political order or another one. Everything else not important. Everything will be fulfilled for that political order, leaving everything else, in this case, the civilian economy, to rot away, and that they still have this mentality. Just to illustrate how they're doing, here are the mortgage rates. You want to buy a home in Russia. In the last 4 years, mortgage rates have soared up to 30%. I don't know what it is in the United States. In Estonia, it's usually with the Euribor interest included, it's 1 to 3, 1 to 4% altogether, maybe 1 to 5. But in Russia, it's 30%. Can you imagine? I don't know, what are you paying in the US? 1 million in mortgage to buy a house? Put in a 30% interest. Let's see how big is your payment. This is insane. Nobody's buying new properties anymore. And what does this mean? It means that Russia's the largest real estate developer, Samolet, will go bankrupt. In fact, they have not paid their workers for a few months now, and the construction workers have gone on strike. Here is a massive development, and it's empty. It's half built, it's not finished, it's fully empty. Workers are on strike, they're not paid. New money is not going in because people are not getting loans because the interest rate is 30%. And it's the largest developer in Russia. It's not a small company, it's like the biggest one. They're going bankrupt. It's a lot worse than they let out to be seen. Alright, my friends, now the moment you have been waiting for so long, the Ukrainian counteroffensive. When this offensive is done, my friends, we will toast together for the victory of Ukrainians when they reach the Black Sea coast. I know I'll open this bad boy, art wine from the Bakhmut cellars, pour myself a cold one and cling! Long live Ukraine, Slava Ukraine. If you want to join me in doing that, for example with the Crimean beach party once Ukraine wins the war, we'll all meet up in Crimea opening these art wine bottles and partying away. Go and get yourself your own Ukrainian wine from Bakhmut. Link is in the description. Art wine, my friends. I have always advised you to caution when looking at the headlines of Ukraine's counteroffensive, this and this much ground liberated, and always have this caution. Now this counteroffensive is up to 2 weeks old. It has been going for quite some time and we have some results to talk about. It's not only hype, it's not only information operation, it's real now. So they have liberated in the last week 200 square kilometers. Not that big of an area, but if you consider that this is the biggest battlefield gain for Ukrainian side in the last 2.5 years in 1 week, it becomes quite massive. Especially if you consider that Russia in Zaporizhia advanced in 6 months, almost the same area. They slowly creeped forward, taking massive losses for 6 months. Ukraine seemed to not have an answer to it. And now suddenly, boom, with 1 week, all of it pushed back. This seems to be a rhythm in this war, by the way. We have seen this same rhythm happen in different oblasts many times. Let's take one of the most conservative maps, which is the International Study of War, ISW, and even they show Ukrainian penetrations through the gray zone. Of course, in this map it shows blue penetrating the red, but again, this you always have to take with a grain of salt, because the gray zone is 5 to 20 kilometers deep, making a massive. See this blue penetration, Vishneve, through the penetration, it's about 15 clicks. Gray zone is larger than that. So it's not even penetrated to the fully Russian controlled areas. It's just consolidating areas in the gray zone. Just keep that in mind. What are the main axes of push? Well, it's Huliaipole. Russians have been trying to take this city for the last 2 years. They came really close. Ukrainians control about, 15-20% of Huliaipole. And now, Ukrainians fully took the gray zone back. As you can see, these icons here show where Ukrainian units are clashing with the Russian units, and it's deep under supposedly Russian-controlled territory, or in the gray zone. The point is, Russians have been pushed back, the gray zone have been pushed back, meaning Ukrainians are very actively moving their units towards Russian positions. You can call it a counterattack. And the main goal is to liberate Huliaipole, obviously. Huliaipole, sorry for the butchering of this name of this city. How is the Russian Ministry of Defense taking it? I mean, even Russian military bloggers, all are reporting about the situation in Zaporizhia. Well, the Ministry of Defense comes out with this communication. Starlink terminals have been disconnected for 2 weeks, but this did not affect the intensity and effectiveness of unmanned systems troops, as confirmed by objective control data on the destruction of enemy equipment and manpower. The use of enemy communication mean was employed by individual units to mislead the enemy. So the Russian Ministry of Defense claims that only a few Russian units used Starlink to fool the Ukrainians and to mislead the Ukrainians. Not that the whole army was heavily reliant on Starlink and Telegram to guide their drones, to have live feed from the drones to guide their artillery missions. So the Ministry of Defense is absolutely clueless how the front line is run. And they come out with this communication right now when Ukrainians are actually counterattacking due to the fact that Russian units are more in the dark due to the loss of Starlink. It's unbelievable. And I enjoy it, really do. Biggest Russian military blogger, Rehi, gives us this map, and you know what's beautiful about it? First of all, it sounds like clickbait, right? But no, Russian soldiers are surrounded in a new location. This is the Novakhovka reservoir. So it's blue on this map, but actually it's much smaller, but it's still like a low ground. It's really tough to move in this area. You cannot really push any kind of armor into this area. So these Russian units were hugging the emptied reservoir, and now Ukrainian counteroffensive connected to the emptied reservoir to the village of Plavny, cutting off a small Russian contingent. Now people go about screaming that it's a Russian brigade. Nah, don't believe them. It's 100, maybe 200, few hundred soldiers, probably less. But still, we don't see many encirclements in this war. They don't really happen because movements are so slow. But this is one. Here is an encirclement brought to us by a Russian military blogger who has no incentive to lie on this map. So yeah, it's beautiful. I think it will go to the thumbnail and headline. And it's not only Rehi, it's actually other Russian propagandists also. They're complaining about a Ukrainian offensive near Stepnohirsk. The armed forces of Ukraine have begun gradually pushing the Russians back, and they have started lamenting the difficulties. The shallowed Kakhovka reservoir is not helping much despite the 20-kilometer stretch. As the Russian channel notes, airstrikes in the area have increased. So Ukrainians have broken a certain pattern that they don't really use air force as much as the Russian army does. Well, in this counteroffensive area near the Novakhovka reservoir and in the Zaporizhia Oblast, they have suddenly switched on their air force. A lot of guided bombs are falling onto Russian positions. It's a real issue. And suddenly Russian contingent is cut off. Well, this is beautiful. I always wanted to see Ukrainian Air Force being used more. Now I do see that, and I'm enjoying my day. I will go one more time to illustrate a large gray zone and what it really means, because I think it's really important. People always get so carried away with any kind of counteroffensive by the Ukrainian side or any kind of attack by the Russian side. Let's get down to reality. Let's put our boots firmly on the ground. Between Ukrainian and Russian lines, there is a strategic concept, the gray zone. This area is not a no man's land. It's a fairly large area, between 5 and 20 kilometers, that isn't really under the control of either army. The blue and red lines on the map correspond to the Ukrainian and Russian front line. That is the maximum zone to which logistics can reach. So if you can see any kind of map, blue and red, this is where Ukrainian or Russian logistics works. Behind which artillery is positioned, which serves as a starting point for launching an assault, and where the army exercises effective control over the territory. So if you see any kind of a Russian armored assault, you know that it starts from the red line and it goes into the gray zone, not to the blue line. Just explaining the colors on the map. The gray zone between the two can be divided into 3 zones. The Ukrainian diffuse control zone, presence of positions, elastic defense, presence of drones, logistical support on foot. This is very important because no proper logistics works on foot. So in the gray zone you gotta carry everything you bring there, meaning no proper logistics. This is located immediately in the front of a defensive line, a town or a river. The actual gray zone, presence of both armies, zone used by the Russian army to advance towards the Ukrainians, diffuse control zone, or even further. This zone is not under the control of either side, despite what some maps are showing. And a lot of maps show that red and blue lines go to each other like that. No, there's a massive weird zone in between where units are moving around. It's very elastic and liquid. Both armies are making hit and runs into it and pull it back. Drones are flying. It's a weird liquid zone that it's really impossible to map. And then there's the Russian diffuse control zone. Corresponds to an area recently captured or close to the front line, where the Russians cannot establish their logistical operations and are limited to occupying the territory with infantry. This is the Russian gray zone. So these 3 zones are what make up the gray zone, and most maps don't show it as it is. So take every map you see with a grain of salt. And most Ukrainian offensives right now in Zaporizhia also have happened in the gray zone or have barely moved to the Russian positions out of the gray zone, but not much. You know what I won't take with a grain of salt? My art wine. When I'm pouring this bad boy out, no grain of salt will be added. I'll be fully indulging myself in the Ukrainian victory, and so will you, my friends. Go and get Ukrainian wine from Bakhmut cellars. Link is in the description below. And as always, my friends, until my next video, Slava Ukraini, and bye bye.